Welcome, everybody, to the podcast. I'm Chris Shea. I'm a solutions architect serving customers in the enterprise ad tech and marketing space. Today's guest is Oliver Myers, who leads business development for Amazon Q Business for independent software vendors, ISVs. Oliver, welcome to the show. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having me.
So, Oliver, on paper, your job title is Senior Manager of ISV Go-to-Market for Amazon Q Business. What does that mean in English?
Yeah, no, really good question. I think so. As a global BD, I have a team of 7 people, and we really focus just at the BD level on a lot of things, right? Market fit, getting adoption, product feedback, etc. Right? And so that's kind of the remit of a BD at AWS. But for us, our real focus is on Q business integrations with ISVs. And in particular, that centers around this Q index feature. And the Q index is something that these ISVs can now use to tap into, to pull data into their applications, to enhance them and to create enriched experiences. And so what we do is we find the ISVs and work with them to integrate Q index. And then my team and myself works with them on sort of joint go-to-market and telling a better together story.
See, that's a lot more than the job title would let on. That's brilliant. And I think for the uninitiated as well, if you would mind defining an ISV, what exactly is that?
Yeah, it's a really good question because I think it can depend on who you ask. I think when we started with Q Index, we really focused on productivity ISVs. So these are builders, application developers that sell a product that is a platform that offers features for you to be more productive. I think what we're starting to see in the world of the agentic workflows is that there are a lot of other types of ISVs, those that are in the security space, observability space, those that offer platforms for building agentic workflows that are very much a part of being interested in Q Index. And so really what we look for an ISV is that they have a application that they've built that they sell to end users. And really the best benefit for them when using the Q Index is that they also have generative AI features that they've built into that. Because if they have that mix, then the Q Index is a great feature for them because it will allow them to integrate with 40 plus data sources to enhance those Gen AI features.
Brilliant. And I think that's a really awesome jumping off point for another topic I wanted to cover with you today that is fairly recent with Q Index. Oliver, tell me a little bit more about the problem that Q Index looks to solve and who it's for.
Yeah, no. So I'll go back to April last year. I mentioned that's when Q Business was launched. When it was launched, the focus of it was really and I mentioned productivity, right? Making people more productive, but that was really focused sort of on internal employee productivity, right? And maybe a little less so than how Q Business could be something, or portions of Q Business could be embeddable within third-party applications. And so after we launched, we, like we do at AWS, met with all of our customers, including the cohort that are these application builders and ISVs. And they were really intrigued by how they could maybe use Q Business to augment and enhance their existing generative AI offerings in their platform. And what a key piece that we honed in on were those data connectors and the data that can be sourced into Q Business, because that's a really sort of challenging part of it, the investment for them. Managing and maintaining data connectors is tricky. It's hard. It's kind of can be never ending depending on customer demands. And so what they asked of us was there a way that those adopting Q Business could grant them access to retrieve data from those Q Business applications? And the back end of a Q Business application is called an index, the Q Index, and pull data from that into their experiences so that when using that generative AI assistant, it would not only be able to answer questions based on what that application knows, but the myriad of data sources that enterprise has, making that experience richer and more contextualized for the end user.
I think to accentuate that point too, I'd love to learn more about what that end user experience looks like in those applications leveraging QIndex.
Sure. Yeah. And so we have with QIndex, we launched it at re:Invent. We launched with Zoom, Asana, PagerDuty, and Miro, all various applications that do slightly different things. And, Zoom's in the video conferencing and contact center space. You have PagerDuty, which is incident management, Asana, which is project management and productivity across various different elements. And so and all of those experiences now in the Gen AI world have generative AI features. Zoom has AI Companion, Asana has Asana AI, PagerDuty has PagerDuty Advanced, Miro has Miro AI, where people are now leveraging the power of Gen AI within their applications and getting questions answered and doing summarization and building new templates and campaigns all from that place. But what they are relying on or were relying on before the QIndex integration was just the data available in their platforms. Now they're able to bring in all the data that exists across those 40 plus connectors from the QIndex into those experiences. And so now, for example, in Zoom, if you ask a question about the latest project or a summarization of the conversation you're having, it will provide you that, but it will also answer the question based on other data sources like Confluence, like Jira, like Slack, which is pulling from the QIndex. So now as the end user, I don't have to jump from application to application to application to get something solved or get a question answered. I can do it all from one place, which is hugely beneficial because customers today are facing this sort of technology overload challenge where everybody's having to jump from a multitude of applications to solve just one problem. By being able to bring that aggregated data and all those the data from those connectors into something like Zoom AI Companion or Asana AI, you now can do more from one single interface and be more productive.
Brilliant. Well, Oliver, I know you have a demo that you wanted to share on Q Business with a focus on QIndex as well. Would love to take a look at that.
Yeah, to bring to life what I'm talking about QIndex, I think it's best always to show the visuals. I have some demos today of what it looks like in Zoom, Asana, and PagerDuty Advance.
Brilliant. Let's take a look.
So I'll start with an example from Zoom. This is the Zoom workplace that comes with their AI Companion that you can see on the right, which is where you can ask questions and interrogate the data within the Zoom workplace. The person, in this case, is getting ready for a cross-functional team sync on something called Project Nexus. And you can see that's about to start in 6 minutes, and they need to get up to speed on Project Nexus. So what you'll see in this demo is the person is now going to go and leverage AI Companion to get answers about Project Nexus. And in this case, the AI Companion is integrated with QIndex. So what's going to happen is when the person asks about the current status of Project Nexus, they are not just going to get data retrieved from Zoom, they are also going to get that data back from sources from the QIndex, including Confluence and Google Docs. And now the end user is even taking another step, which is summarizing the project content from the Confluence data. And you can see that it's doing this all within Zoom AI Companion. The end user can also click on the cited sources, that typical RAG architecture, and even click on the source to go to that piece of content to interrogate it further if they want. And so what this really demonstrates is that with QIndex, Zoom AI Companion can be even more beneficial and more enriched for the end users to get all of their work done and be more productive in one place so that they're not having to jump from app to app to app to solve a problem.
Brilliant. And I think that highlights perfectly how QIndex stands to help break down those data silos that really make things a bit more challenging when you're working with multiple different data sources to really help paint that story that, hey, when you're using QIndex with AWS, you're working better together.
Now let me show you QIndex in action with Asana. Asana is a fantastic platform for project management and productivity and assigning tasks and creating boards to complete projects across various departments. They have Asana AI, which is their generative AI powered virtual assistant, and that lives within Asana. And now with QIndex, a end user of Asana can come in and ask a question. Maybe in this case, they're going to ask a question about decisioning on brand colors. And previously, when that question would be asked with Asana AI, the data would only be retrieved from what Asana knew or Asana already had stored for that enterprise. Now, with the QIndex integration, it's able to pull data sources from the back end of that Q business application that that enterprise has to enrich that experience for the end user. And you can see here, and I always particularly like this, that because it really brings me to my own life where I check Slack a lot for approvals. It shows that there was a conversation in Slack confirming the final decision on brand direction from someone named Vera Morris. And why that's important is that that may have been just what that person needed to move forward on the branding colors without having to jump back and look through Slack or look through other data sources to try to figure out where that decisioning came from. So again, it just shows how the integration between QIndex and a platform like Asana is really enhanced and better together.
Awesome. Again, as someone who currently has quite a few unread Slack messages right now, I can see this being such a huge value add. Thank you for sharing. That's tremendous.
Another really cool example of the integration of QIndex with an application vendor is PagerDuty. PagerDuty has their PagerDuty Advance Assistant, which can be deployed within Slack. And PagerDuty Advance is built on Bedrock. They were also part of Matt Garman's keynote and a great AWS partner. They are a incident response company, so they're really focusing on the end user being an engineering stakeholder, DevOps, anybody that's looking into system issues and triaging them and trying to move faster. And here, moving fast is really critical because any downtime can be very detrimental to the company and to the enterprise. And so what I'll show you is with using PagerDuty Advance, and the integration with QIndex, they're looking for critical insights from Confluence about runbooks. And what's interesting and I think really cool about this is previously when using PagerDuty Advance and interrogating and asking questions about an outage, it would have brought you the information that PagerDuty Advance knew and PagerDuty knew. But now it can bring these outside data sources in. So what you're seeing here, and you can see it at the bottom of this video, is that the information being sourced about this runbook is actually coming from Confluence, and that Confluence data is coming from the Amazon QIndex. So that's really impactful because now, as you're solving or triaging an incident, you can look to these other sources and there might be information there needed to actually solve the problem. And that's really important for speed and getting things solved faster. So again, another really great example to a slightly different stakeholder than the other examples of integrations we have, which is this sort of incident response community where it can really enhance their productivity.
Fantastic. When you're working in such a high stakes environment where speed matters so much, it's fantastic that we have additional information that we can pull from to make that happen faster. Oliver, as a line of business leader, hypothetically, for me in this case, what are some of the benefits that I stand to gain from using QIndex?
I think for the LOB, as they look at their sort of portfolio of workers and the type of work that they do, I think it all really does come back again to productivity, right? And being more efficient and getting efficiency gains through the use of something like Q Business. For their stakeholders, right? There's going to be a myriad of different components to how they track ROI, right? So, is it going to be the speed with which something is done? Is it going to be the cost savings with which they were able to do it? Would it be the benefits or rewards or being able to monetize what they do and create a revenue stream? And all of that goes back to being able to be more efficient and using Q Business, right? Depending on the use case, opens up that possibility to be more productive for you to then look at the particular use case you're working on. So for an engineering department, speed might really be the critical component, right? And so being able to do Q&A, do summarization of things like Jira and Confluence data is important, but you can also take actions. And so now I'm able to create not only a knowledge base of data, but take actions on it all within Q Business, which portends to help you move faster. Then you could think about another department like sales. It's not just speed, but it's going to be execution. It's going to be the right targeting, right? And now if I give them a Q Business application that has Salesforce data, Slack information from previous customer conversations that I've had internally, you can start to develop data sets and points of sort of that knowledge base where you can interrogate that data and maybe learn something from the past that you can use today to be better at what you're doing, right? Tell me about the success of the campaign I ran to, FinServ companies in APJ last year. And if it wasn't a success, you can start to find out why. And maybe that's not a campaign you run this year. So you start to really hone in on your targeting. So again, I think for the line of business user, the use case will change depending on the line of business they own. But I think the core construct that remains is more productivity, and across productivity elements, the ROI derived therefrom. And that's really the power of Gen AI too, right? By being able to not only have that data within a Q Business application, but really interrogate it and do things with it, you can move so much faster.
Exactly. It's all about ensuring that you can remain agile and fast when you're making these changes too. I think that's one of the huge benefits that I envision as well, is it's able to let you adopt generative AI at such a fast clip. This isn't something that's going to take a long time to implement, right? This isn't going to be a tremendous blocker to innovation. It's designed to be a tool that can very easily slot into existing workflows and make you work more efficiently, more quickly.
And a point to add on there too is by being a managed offering, it gives line of business somewhat of a more agency to get started, right? If you need to build an enterprise-wide generative AI assistant from scratch, that's going to take a lot of developer and engineering resources to do. But with Q Business, where it's ready-made for you to get started fast, it is really easy to spin up an application and get started. They have a pathway to moving quickly to realizing those productivity gains.
Fantastic. So Oliver, let's say, for instance, I'm an ISV looking to leverage Q-Index. What are some of those benefits that I can glean as an ISV?
Totally. I think there's a lot. I think the core problem statement for the ISV right now is that their customers are asking for their platforms to have a lot of, cross-application data all in one place so that their generative AI experiences are richer and that they can achieve those productivity gains that they're after. That leaves ISVs with, an investment decision to make about building connectors to third-party data sources to meet that customer demand, which is cumbersome. It is high capital investment, resource investment, and it needs constant maintenance for keeping those connectors, up to date and up to speed. And so with the Q-Index, we now have a place where 40 plus connectors are aggregated and, put together in one place, this vector database that is the back end of Q Business. And so now they can much more efficiently, with lower sort of capital resources, tap into a myriad of third-party data sources to enhance their application. And what that does is it not only makes their generative AI features, not just the chat Q&A, but also the agentic, much more powerful. But it gives them now, and I reap the benefit of this, and I am a huge proponent of this, it gives us a great co-sell story and better together story. I joke with some of the ISVs that we work with that I used to come and tell them about a service, and if they liked it, they move forward and they never heard from me again. But now I stay forever. I never leave, and neither does my team. And we get to solve the challenges together, right? Because we now have a unified sort of integrated offering. And that's been really cool too, because our ISV partners are doing such amazing stuff across a number of different use cases and a number of different persona types. So that's been really awesome for me. Beyond just the problem statement that they're solving with the technology is the co-sell element of it.
Fantastic. And I think it's a great way to pitch that better together story. right? Too. So I think that makes a ton of sense. To follow up on that question as well, right? Let's say for ISV customers who are interested in becoming a part of QIndex, how can they get started?
Great question. Yeah, I would say if that's something you're interested in, and we hope all application builders and ISVs are, get in touch with your account manager, share your interest in QIndex, and your account manager will then find me and my team, and we will dive in to educate you on QIndex. We can provide support to help you build with QIndex. And then I can also tell you about all the fun stuff we can do in terms of joint go-to-market and co-selling and co-marketing that we can do around the integration. So that would be my recommendation to them.
Fantastic. So reaching out to your AWS account manager, great first place to start as an ISV. Makes perfect sense. So I think we're coming down the home stretch here. I do want to ask you before we wrap things up as well, right? Are there any call outs, anything you want to mention to the viewers in terms of how they could get started, or just general advice to the world?
To the viewers and in general advice to the world, I would say Q Business is a fantastic place to start to get going with generative AI and to really start thinking about production and production use cases for generative AI. It has such low barriers to entry, really proficient, does all the heavy lifting for you in terms of building the knowledge base with which to interact with. It comes with a web UI. And even better, we're increasing the footprint now where you can get sort of information from your Q Business applications in Zoom, in Asana, in PagerDuty, in Miro. So really, I would just say get started, start consuming information, talk to your AWS account manager. If you want to learn more about Q Business, they will find time with specialists to come meet with you and explain the value on top of what you've heard today.
Brilliant. Well, Oliver, this has been an absolute pleasure to learn a little bit more about Q Business and QIndex with you. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming on the show. This has been wonderful.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me, Chris. And yeah, looking forward to seeing more customers adopting Q Business after this.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. And thanks for watching, everybody. Really appreciate it.